You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Greetings, everybody. I'm greeting everyone from the continent of Africa and from the diaspora. And thank you very much for inviting me. As you can see, I'm a gender equality activist. I'm a consultant on gender and transformation. I'm also an author of Leading Like a Woman, a book I wrote in 2018. It's now available on Amazon. However, if you want it, you can also speak to me directly via email and WhatsApp. My speech is about systemic gender-based violence, because I know that most of the time when we talk about gender-based violence, we are talking about it as if it's something that only happens between one person and another one person. But the truth is that it's actually structural and it's also systemic. And that is why we are failing to deal with it, because I think we pretend that it's something that is just happening because it's happening between one man and one woman. In fact, this thing has become very systemic over time. So what is it when you talk about structural or systemic violence against women? We have studied this phenomenon called GBV, or violence against women, and we find that it's very structural, it's very systemic, because it's parts and parcel of the economic structure, the social structure, the judicial structure, and the political architecture of our nations. The norms and values of our societies incorporate the dominance and leadership of men, which results in the relegation of everyone else in our societies. And also the way we socialize children, the way we socialize adults as well. We promote a particular order in society that uplifts men at the expense of everyone else. So the UN Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women of 1993 was the turning point in how we see gender-based violence and violence against women. I've skipped the one because I'm trying to make sure that I don't take too much time. I skipped slide number 3. The declaration recognized that opportunities for women to achieve legal, social, political, and economic equality in society are limited, amongst others by continuing and endemic violence. I think I'm going to be struggling a bit here because my slides are being blocked by the video, by the Zoom. So I'm struggling to actually remind myself all of this. But how do women and other marginalized groups experience this violence? We experience it through an endemic inability to extract justice in divorce cases, in maintenance cases, in molestation cases. We experience it in the stubborn refusal to report femicide cases as femicide. We experience it in the inability to impact effectively on the harmful traditional practices. We experience it in the inability to eliminate human trafficking. We experience it in the inability to address the gender wage gap. In most countries, women earn 30% less than men for jobs of the same, that are the same. We also experience it in the inability to deal effectively with sexual harassment and other cases of gender-based violence, including femicide in society and of course in the world of work. Also, we find an unnecessary struggle to recognize women and to ensure that we develop gender responsive budgets in our governments. We also experience it in the ability to develop and consistently address the needs of the most needy in our societies, who are overwhelmingly women. We also experience it in the intimidation and disempowering and rendering useless women who are in leadership. We experience it in a campaign of underfunding or defunding structures that deal with women's rights and gender equality. We experience it in the resistance to genuine transformation. This is how these are just some of the examples. I'm sure on your own you can say, oh, I also know of this, I also know of that. So I wanted to also suggest what is to be done. In the economy, we really need to rethink the economy. The economy was established along capitalist and also patriarchal lines. Those lines favor men at the expense of any other person. And it's even worse if you are a person of African descent. It means you'll be right at the bottom. I don't even want to talk about the African women themselves. Are right at the bottom of the economic ladder, globally speaking, even in some of our countries like South Africa. So I'm suggesting that we need to start, if we want to deal with the systemic and structural gender-based violence, we need to develop ideas about a solidarity economy. And the solidarity economy will, of course, be feminist. It will be inclusive. It will be a leave no one behind kind of an economy. So the practice of solidarity, we are together, economy must be hegemonized, must be made to rule in society, because it will bring in norms, values, beliefs, and practices of genuine equality, and remove values, beliefs, and practices of the capitalist or patriarchal economy. In society, develop ideas about socialization and resocialization for equality, to rehumanize us, because the truth is that with the systems that have developed, we have been dehumanized to a certain extent. So we must be rehumanized for mutuality, for communality, for Ubuntu. We also need to hegemonize, make those to rule in society and practice ideas in the home, as well as in all social institutions, especially education, but probably religion as well. I mean, there are different social institutions in which we can implement this. And then in politics, we need to develop shared ideas about what political systems should be doing, not what they're doing now. We must develop ideas about solidarity politics, develop even the systems for solidarity politics, because we don't want something that is just going to hang there as an idea, but we want something that can be implemented. And also develop systems of accountability in the space, because we know how easily we have been manipulated in the political spaces. In the judiciary and police service, we want to develop a legal framework that is fit for the people of a particular nation. For example, I make an example of South Africa because our legislation is using human rights and also Roman Dutch law as something that we are trying to marry, whereas the Roman Dutch law was never really human rights based system. And I think for us, because we are in Africa, we need to have an African element to the legislations that we develop, like Ubuntu. I am because you are. And I want to make an example about what I mean here, because when you look at the banking and the insurance system, it's a great example to show how divorced from our culture those systems are. When you pay your insurance for your insurance policy over 20 years, and then the person will die on the 21st year, or you die on the 21st year after paying for a policy. Do you know that you won't get even 50 cents after paying for so many years? And I think that is extremely inhuman for you to have spent that much money over many years, and then in the end, you don't get anything just because you missed 1 month or 2 months, or you lost a job and things like that. So I think that is why we really have to relook at our legal framework as countries across Africa to see how we can bring ourselves as well as Africans into these legislations or pieces of legislation. We also need to have a zero tolerance for any oppressive practice. We need to rehumanize, re-educate all role players in the system. We know that the current legal framework is very elitist, it's very individualistic. We need to make sure that it has mutuality, it's got communality, it's got an Ubuntu frame of practice. I'm trying to be very swift in my presentation. I believe that we will be able to transform our society. When we start thinking in this way, we consider the ideas that I'm advancing here, I believe that we will be able to transform our societies in such a way that we deal also with this systemic gender-based violence, because we want to talk about it as if it's only something that happens in a household where a man will be beating up on a woman, or it happens in a workplace where a manager will be abusing workers in that space. But that's not the only way in which we experience it. It's not only physical, this violence that we experience. And that is why we are finding it hard to deal with it. We really need to transform our societies completely. We need to develop these ideas further in our different collectives. We have a wealth of thoughts beyond this particular group of people that I'm talking to, that we need to take, we need to get ideas from to help us shape, form, and formulate the content of this transformation that I'm talking about. The key, of course, here is to ensure that the transformation is inclusive, it integrates Ubuntu, it integrates mutuality and solidarity. We avoid alienation, discrimination, greed, and monopoly. And I believe that when we do those things, we'll find that women's rights and everyone else's rights will equal, all of us being respected. We will have peace and we will have prosperity if we implement these ideas. Thank you very much for inviting me. If you want to invite me to another forum, these are my details. You can communicate with me there. If you want to order my book, these are my details. You can contact me there, or just go to Amazon and access the book. Thank you very much.